Hi, everyone. This is Valerie Green, and I am doing my first video podcast episode. I've had a podcast on iTunes for a while, and I will post the link below. My podcast is called Soul Shaking Love, helping you develop a mind, body, and spirit connection, both with yourself and your true love. And today I am excited to be here with my guest, Freedom Rivera. Hi, Freedom. How are you?
Hello, guys. Hi.
So amazing to have her. Freedom is a women's empowerment coach and mindfulness educator in New York City. And I met her recently at an event and was just so inspired by her vibrancy and her aliveness, her playfulness, and how much fun she was to connect with. And so we are really excited to talk about the 4 mindfulness elements that every couple needs to know in order to improve their relationship. And so I will tell you a little bit more about Freedom, and then we'll just jump into this topic. So Freedom Rivera is a women's empowerment coach and mindfulness consultant. She's also the founder and facilitator of the well-known women's circle called Mindful She Circles in New York City. And we'll put the link to that below for any of you that are in New York. If not, don't worry, because she also has amazing online resources, and she helps the modern woman master the practice of self-love and connect to her divine guidance so that she can create the life that she loves. So today we're going to tell you some concrete tools that you can take to increase the intimacy, the closeness, and the love, both with yourself and with your partner through mindfulness. So I'm really excited to dive in. So first of all, Freedom, I'd love to hear your opinion. I know that mindfulness is such a buzzword lately. And so how would you describe it in a way that's really easy for people to see that, oh, wow, this is an amazing tool I can bring to my life?
Sure, but before I start, I want to first thank you for having me here at your podcast and being able to share all these amazing teachings about mindfulness with your audience. So I'm very excited to share with you something that I actually use when I work with couples. So first of all, so what is mindfulness, right? So for those who don't know what is mindfulness, it's the awareness of the present moment. That typically is the answer when you ask someone about what is mindfulness. But I would like to add more onto that because my experience with mindfulness has been very personal, that it really revolutionized my life 5-6 years ago. And I want to add that mindfulness is also the art of self-compassion. And with that said, if one has that self-compassion for oneself, you will attract the right career, the relationship, the finances, and all that. It's like a ripple effect of awesomeness. So yeah.
I totally agree. And I'm sure you're going to go into that in this interview. I'm super excited about that because I think when I first heard the idea of self-compassion, I think, and a lot of people associate it with like giving yourself slack. And I think a lot of people associate that, oh, if I give myself compassion, that means that I'm not going to, what's going to motivate me to do anything in the world if I just accept myself no matter what? When really, at least in my experience, and I've seen this with my clients, when you really learn to have self-compassion, then you actually go after your goals more. You're willing to take more risks and make mistakes and learn and grow because you know that you'll give yourself compassion no matter what. And so it actually makes you more fearless and more ambitious. Would you agree?
Yes, by all means. And self-compassion, first of all, you mentioned the word motivation, right? And something that I want to clarify because people are getting so confused about that one needs motivation to keep moving forward in life. So prior to motivation, what you really need is something like more substantial than motivation, because motivation alone is not going to get it out of bed and do your stuff, right? Do your thing. It's inspiration. What inspires you in life? Inspiration comes first and then motivation.
Thank
And
you. I totally agree with that.
yes, and so compassion, what it does when you have the sense of self-compassion to you, it helps you make skillful decisions. And a great question to ask yourself is, especially when you are in going through a dilemma or a conflict with yourself or someone, is what is the most loving thing that I can do for myself right now? Or what is the most loving decision that I can make for myself right now?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that mindfulness really helps us to be clear about what the most loving thing is, because I'm sure you're going to talk about this too, but once you're aware of everything going on inside you, all the different voices, it's being present, like, because I think a lot of people, before they learn mindfulness, they're only aware of what's going on the surface, like the loudest voice inside of them, which a lot of times is coming from anger or judgment. And once you have mindfulness, then you could really be aware of all the different voices inside you and which one is coming from a loving place.
Exactly. And with mindfulness, you're just really lowering the volume on your mind, because you could be walking around, but be honest, most of the time you're walking around with your own agenda in your mind. Oh, what do I supposed to do in the next hour? Or what did she tell me that I need to do differently? Or you're just having all these 10,000 different thoughts. What am I going to wear tomorrow, right? You're already there predicting, trying to make a plan, or wondering
Exactly.
about what happened in the past. But you're either in the future or in the past, but you're not really fully embodying the present. So at the
Exactly.
beginning, with my journey with mindfulness, I was like, oh, okay, this sounds boring. I'm really being honest. But once I was in an environment in which I had to apply mindfulness in everything that I do, which is called mindfulness living, then I started understanding the benefits and how my body and mind were just like having this huge transformation.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, before we really dive in, I'm curious to hear what benefits has mindfulness brought to your own life and your own relationships?
Yes, well, it starts with oneself. I let go of things that sometimes, many people here, especially New Yorkers, we want to control things. And sometimes when things don't work out, like I know you and I, we just had that before, prior to making this podcast. There were some challenges coming up technically and other stuff. And we're like, okay, we just have to go with the flow, right? There is no point of us getting either anxious or resistant to what was happening. Sometimes we just have to surrender.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take even the word surrender, of letting go of things, and we apply that now in relationships, oof, that is very, 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 very powerful. Especially I've seen partners in which they really, I know they are loving, they want to offer a lot of love to their partner, but sometimes we don't know how to love. And I think that is probably the main foundation of my 8-week training that I offer for couples here in New York, on teaching them how to love.
Yeah.
Because with how to love, you have to learn about that love is actually understanding, and it's
Yeah.
also about surrendering. A lot of that, I've seen beautiful, amazing couples, but they come with either one of them or both of them can come with a lot of ego, that ego shaped, that was created, from their own bringing. So there's different expectations coming from different parties, and it's about sitting down. Mindfulness helps you to sit down with a person, understand the person's suffering, understand and transform your own suffering,
Mm.
um, in a way that the other person can feel safe and vulnerable to open up and really discuss the things that needs to be discussed in a relationship.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love how you talked about surrendering to going with the flow and being in the present moment, because I think a lot of people associate surrender with defeat. And
Mm.
really, what surrender means is that you are opening your heart to the moment with compassion and focusing on understanding what's going on inside you and understanding what's going on inside the other person, right? So I think that, what you said is just so powerful, that love is understanding, because so often a lot of us think that love is this feeling that we get when we're falling in love with all of the intense emotions and where you feel swept off your feet and they're trying to get that feeling back. And of course, I think that feeling can be part of love. But like you said, I think what is the prerequisite for having that loving feeling is truly understanding both what's going on inside you and what's going on inside the other person, so that you have connection. I like to call that into me see, which is what intimacy is. And so that's so beautiful.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so that's so wonderful. Thank you. So let's dive into what are these 4 elements of mindfulness that are essential to
Sure.
really create a successful relationship.
All right, guys. So are you guys ready? Here is element number 1, which is loving kindness. What in the world is loving kindness, and how do I apply that in a relationship? Practically, loving kindness is knowing how to bring happiness first to yourself. We have these high expectations from our partners, I wish he could be more humorous, or he'd be more sexier, or he could be more communicative. And my question to you is, are you all of those things? But most important, loving kindness means like being able to transition your own suffering to calmness and then to joy. How do you uplift yourself? So if you learn how to create this happiness, and by the way, the definition of happiness is very different from what movies and Hollywood teaches you. Happiness in mindfulness can also mean just being at peace. Doesn't mean that you always have to be like in that high vibe, which is great by all means. If you are in that high vibe level, great. But if you're not there yet, just want you to know that happiness can also just means being calm and being at peace with yourself, so you can bring that presence, that loving energy into the relationship.
I love that. Yeah. And so what simple tools do you teach about loving kindness? Of course, to give to yourself first. Like if somebody doesn't know how to do that, what would you recommend that they do to get started?
Create your own assessment. We have kind of like an average of 9 to 10 aspects in our lives, which includes, family relationships, friendships, our social life, our career life, our self-growth life, our finances, all these different aspects of our life. Measure them from 0 to 10. Where are you at? 10 being the highest, that you're very satisfied and content. If you are perhaps 10 on finances, but you are like 1 on social life, if you don't have a social life, people that you can call them friends and have fun and connect with people, because human beings are, we are here to connect with others, you're gonna be one mopey fellow.
Right, exactly.
Right? How can you bring happiness? So make an assessment, reflect on yourself. You can actually type on Google, the wheel of life. And if you type the wheel of life, you can start measuring all these different aspects of your life and have an assessment where you're at with each of them. And whatever you score lower, work on that aspect of your life so you can have sort of a balanced life. We cannot always have like the perfect 10 or 9, because we are humans, right? We are imperfect in living an imperfect life, but we can at least try to have most of the things balanced one way or another. I think anything above 5, 6 actually is a healthy way of living.
Yeah, I agree. I call that the wheel of life exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every coach has that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's very powerful, because a lot of times people don't understand, why am I not happy? And it's because we all have, we have to have a balance of things in our life that are all working together. We all have certain needs. And I do think that's a huge part of mindfulness, is just being aware of what all your needs are and making sure that you're not, first of all, putting all those on your partner, right? Because your partner can't meet all your needs. Although, at least the way I teach, it's like, it's good to express our needs to our partner. But if we're making sure that we give everything that we need to ourselves first, and when we express it, then it's coming from a really open and curious and collaborative place rather than a needy place. So I think that's
Exactly.
great.
And yeah, I recently heard this beautiful video from this guy. His name is Sadhguru. I'm probably mispronouncing it. Beautiful teachings, and he teaches how, when it comes to relationships, how most of us go into a relationship as a beggar, because we have a psychological need, a physical need, all these different needs, even financial needs, and if you go as a beggar, you just get whatever a beggar gets, right? But if you go already fulfilled and knowing that you're not going to go into a relationship as a beggar, but rather that somebody is going to receive and give, you are in a much better position, a start for a healthy relationship. And even
really
if you find yourself right now listening to this and you're like, oh wait, I'm still a beggar, you have the power to change your life by taking control of your own life first, not your partner, but your own life.
Exactly, because there's so many different ways we can get our needs met, and if you really have resourcefulness and creativity around that, then it's not difficult to realize how you could be getting your needs met more than you already are. It just takes discipline and commitment, which, of course, those in and of themselves can be challenging, but of course, that's how we grow, as we said before, right?
Exactly. And accepting, if you are in a committed relationship that requires work and a responsibility, they don't teach you about these kind of requirements in school. We just kind of learn about romantic movies, but the reality is, if you are single and you want this long-term committed relationship, know that when you're stepping into it, it's going to require definitely a lot of responsibility and work.
Exactly. And the question that I like to ask my clients is just, what makes it worth it? Not like, is it going to be work or not? It is work, but what's going to make it worth it? And we have to have a big enough vision of what we want in relationship, what we want to experience, not just what we want to get from the other person, in order to really inspire us to do the work.
Yes.
It's a great mindset. So yeah, I mean, do you have anything else to say about loving kindness, or do you want to go?
We can move to element number 2.
Sure.
All right, so element number 2 is compassion. So how does compassion applies to relationships? So compassion needs to be practiced for both. It practically is to transform your suffering and hers or his suffering. So there's a responsibility in which not only you have to transform your own suffering, but now you have to also help your partner transform her or his suffering. So that takes responsibility, and that takes a skill, which we go back to element number 1. If you have the foundation of element number 1, now you can move to element number 2, helping transform your partner's suffering as well.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I just want to go into one more element of both loving kindness and self-compassion, because I think they're so related. Mostly what I do when I want to access loving kindness is that I just put my attention on my heart, and I just say, may I be happy, and may I be peaceful, and may I be safe. And there's so many different variations of that practice, right? Like then you just send loving kindness to someone else that you like, and then usually you send it to someone that you don't like to really transform it. I think that's the beginning of self-compassion. Would you agree?
That's one way. That's one technique. That's calling mindfulness. Is called metta meditation, translated into loving kindness. And I actually have the couples that comes to see me practice that meditation later on in the 8-week training that I offer them. So what happens when you meditate together, because loving kindness includes with you as a person, as you already know, Valerie, and then includes and then it progresses gradually into other people that you're offering this. Like The second one would be your benefactor, somebody that has been a huge influence in your life. And then the third one would be somebody that you barely know. And then the next person would be somebody that you be having difficulty with. It could be your partner in this case. And lastly, offering loving kindness to the world. But we can talk about that, but I feel like, yes, that can something be that could be a kind of meditation if you want to incorporate that in your relationship as a practice, if you want to meditate together, by all means.
Certainly. I mean, I think that just sort of helps us to open our heart, in order to really, because I think that is the prerequisite to be able to give compassion to ourselves and others. And so how would you explain how compassion really helps to ease your suffering and other people's suffering?
So when you start making loving decisions for yourself, the consequences are going to nurture you. You're really nourishing your own life. You really start to experience a sense of peace in your life, more balance, less commotion, and a less chaotic life. You actually start embracing yourself more and dancing with life, because this is a beautiful feeling that I now can dance with life. And if you are having that, itself is romantic. You're having a romantic relationship with yourself and life right there. And imagine if you carry that energy almost on a daily basis, because there are going to be days that you're going to forget perhaps about loving self-compassion or loving kindness. But if you carry this energy and you have really trained your mind, your brain to practice these techniques of pausing in your life, of meditating, of going for a walk, and really see everything with the eyes of wonder, like if you were just a 5-year-old seeing things for the first time. And if you have that sense of dancing with life, of embracing yourself more as a whole with your imperfections, and knowing how loving you are as a person and how you deserve love. Now, if you have created all that energy, and when you step into a relationship, you're irresistible. You are this yummy person, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely agree with you, because I think that how I experience self-compassion is just that, I tap into this wise part of myself that's always telling myself that it's okay to feel what I'm feeling, and that, I'm here for myself, and I'm giving myself that compassionate, loving, kind of motherly energy that all of us crave from the outside. And I'm giving that to myself on the inside. And I think that, at least in my experience, when I'm around my partner from that space, like even when I'm really pissed off or like having a bad day, but I'm like having self-compassion, then all of a sudden he shows up and he's more loving and compassionate to me. Whereas if I'm pissed off and I don't have self-compassion, then he kind of feels like I'm judging him and like needing him to fix it. And then he feels burdened. It makes such a big difference.
Yes, I mean, we sense that. Do you want to approach somebody that is just like in such a attitude that is so heavy and hard to offer understanding? You're gonna give that person some time, right? But it also takes time we're gonna speak later on about elements number 3 and 4, in which it also includes taking the responsibility for you to be vulnerable and ask for help, something that we don't do most of the time. I think most partners just they lock themselves in the room and they're like, don't bother me,
Right.
Instead, it's like, you know what, this might be a good opportunity, a good time for me to actually ask for help. And help could you just be somebody, for your partner to listen, and period. No comments, no feedbacks, no relating, just to listen and hear you out. That
Exactly.
itself can transform things
completely
around.
Yeah, when we just feel heard, when we can vent, when we have somebody to hear us, it's so true. And I think that when we have self-compassion, then because I think a lot of the reasons why people don't ask for what they need is, A, they don't know what they need, they just know that they're upset, and B, that it feels so vulnerable to ask, right? So we're scared of asking and being rejected, and that would feel even worse, right? And so I think self-compassion helps with both of those elements, right? And especially mindfulness, because mindfulness helps us to go inside and identify what we need, because we can
Yes.
kind of like be at peace with everything going on inside of us. So then we can really ask ourselves, what would really help me to feel better? And then you can ask for it really cleanly, like, because I think a lot of times, especially with men, but I think with people in general, like if a woman comes at a man and she's just like emoting, but she doesn't know what she needs, a lot of times he'll get overwhelmed, because he needs a clear request. So that's what, and it goes the other way around too. I don't want to generalize. And I think that when we have self-compassion, that also when we imagine asking and being vulnerable and being rejected, at least we're not rejecting ourselves, right? At least then we can come and give ourselves that self-love and that self-compassion and say, it's okay. I love myself just because I asked. And it's such a powerful place to be coming from.
Yes. So, I mean, just to add more into that, and I would like to move to element number 3 because of the timing.
Yeah.
But it's another thing that mindfulness does is it helps you sit down with your own strong emotions.
Yeah.
And when you sit with your strong emotions, and there is this sense of awareness, where is it coming from? Is it ego? Is something from my past? And then you might know what to do about it, and you might not even not know, but you are aware, and in what would be the next step in terms of, like, perhaps I'm not really even ready yet to talk to my partner at this time, and I'm going to explain that to him in a compassionate way, not in a leave me alone kind of way, right?
Right.
So I mean, it all comes down, like, if you know how to treat yourself, kind, even when you are facing challenging times, it helps you transform that suffering gradually. Once you start learning how to do that, then you can help your partner. Ideally, if your partner also practice mindfulness, that would be great. But you can always come to my 8-week training, and I'll teach you both how to do that.
Right, exactly. I think like it's always easier to as opposed to like you teaching your partner, it's always easier to both go to another training so that you don't become their
Sometimes you need a third person, depends where you're at.
Exactly.
If you're on the last rope, most of the time people just come to us because they're on the last rope, and I'm like, people,
Yeah.
no, don't come when you're like at the end, like you're facing like the severe walls, challenges. Just come for a tune-up. It always
Right,
helps,
exactly.
right?
Wouldn't the world be such a better place if everybody looked at going to some kind of relationship expert for a tune-up rather than waiting until their relationship is down in the dumps?
Yep.
But
Yep.
sort of like maintenance on our car, you don't just wait until like it breaks down on you. You do maintenance.
All right, moving on. Element number 3, which is joy. What does joy imply? Practically not inflicting unnecessary suffering onto the other person. Sometimes because we haven't yet learned how to deal with our own anger, it's going back to compassion. So you have to, it's kind of like these steps. So you have to take step 1, loving kindness, and compassion, and then comes joy.
Yeah.
Then if you have managed how to practice compassion for yourself and others, then now you're more aware that, okay, am I saying this thing out of the spite? Am I being just so angry and I don't know how to manage so you start becoming aware where you're at with your attitude when you want to communicate with your partner in order to resolve things or clarify things. So just knowing that it's definitely a responsibility not to inflict unnecessary suffering into the relationship, and asking yourself, can I bring joy into my relationship? Like I expressed at the beginning of today's talk, is all the expectations that I have for my partner, do I have that for myself? You know,
Mm.
you be the one also with that humorous vibe, with that humor sense, and also, you know, if you want your partner to appreciate yourself, do you appreciate your partners as well, and how do you show that? So yes, and also part of joy also means is like having a plan, you know, the two of you together, like what aspirations do I have in common with my partner? And if you don't have one, create one. It's always great to have a project in which the two of you can work together as a team, right? I think that's how some couples have fallen in love, because they found themselves doing something together and they found so much
Yeah.
joy doing it.
Totally. I mean, I think that speaks to a couple of important components. Like, first of all, keeping on doing things that you enjoy together. Because I think a lot of couples, when they get married and have kids, they lose sight of actually keeping on dating each other and having fun and joy. And I love what you said too, because it speaks to what you were saying in the beginning about going into relationship as a beggar versus going into relationship with something to give, like giving yourself joy and having that spill over into the relationship. And then coming from this place of like, what are we creating together? Let's keep on inspiring. You know, if like we already created what we said we wanted, then like what's next? You know, what are we? Because I think that at least like with a romantic partner, sexual energy is creative energy. And so if we're not using our passion for each other to create something, then it dies down.
Yes, 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 yes to everything you said.
Yeah. I mean, and I really love what you said about just like bringing joy to the relationship, because I think, you know, so often we forget that that is, we want to get joy from the other person, but are we giving it?
Yeah, and if you're a parent watching this, parents, I know it's like a huge responsibility on top of the relationship to be a parent. I have in my family people that are parents. I'm not a parent myself. However, I have a background in psychotherapy, so I have had workshops for parents as well. And something that I tell every parent, um, ask your tribe, your family, to help you also with the kids, and where at least twice a month you can go out on a date with your husband or wife. Yeah.
Totally. And I know that it's really challenging. I'm not a parent as well. And, you know, because I know how challenging it is. And of course, rewarding. Um, but it's so important to be resourceful. And, you know, even if you can't afford to hire a babysitter, like maybe do a babysitting exchange with another couple that you know, to just make time to enjoy your time with each other, because that is what keeps a relationship going strong, is that you have enjoyable experiences together.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I know, lastly, the element number 4, which is inclusiveness. So practically inclusiveness, it's about that your partner's happiness or sufferings is yours as well. Sometimes we only want to be with that person when the person is in a good mood. But if the person is struggling or suffering about something, whoop, that other, you know, some people fly away. No.
Yeah, I don't want drama.
Exactly. And if you are in a committed relationship, especially, it's about, okay, you know, his or her happiness and suffering is also mine. And it's about working
Mhm.
together as a team. Um, and you need to be able to, again, to help them transform if they're suffering, they're suffering. And these 4 essential elements is good for everyone and everything, not only in just I think couples, but also, you know, could be also with family members and so on. It's like one, if you live with your family, obviously, but if you want to cultivate seeds of kindness, it starts with you first of all, right? By
Mhm.
being kind to yourself. And you know, there's so many things that how mindfulness can help you improve and boost your relationship. some of the things that my mindfulness teacher says, for example, is that there are 3 kinds of intimacy: physical, emotional, and spiritual. And if the physical intimacy can be very meaningful when you have all these 3 balanced together, right? The physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. So yeah. And
I
if
completely
you,
agree. I mean, that's how I define soul shaking love, when all of those
yes,
are there.
yes, and if you are about to embark on a relationship or would like to be in a relationship, I would like to ask you first, are you ready to be in a relationship? I have created an assessment, kind of like a quiz for you guys to answer that question. Am I ready to be in love? Val will have all these links and resources on her page.
Definitely. I love what you said. I want to swing back to that last 4th element because I think it's
Sure.
so important. Um, because this is such a rich topic. We could probably do a whole interview just on this.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's a continuum, right, around taking too much responsibility versus not taking enough. Meaning, like, if you completely take on your partner's burdens like it's your own, in where you're abandoning your own, then that's codependent. And if you completely say that's your stuff, not mine, then you're kind of on the selfish end of the spectrum. And so how do you really access that sweet spot in the middle? And I'm sure that as a therapist, you're really good at teaching people how to do that.
So it's important that loving another person doesn't take priority over listening to yourself and knowing what you need. That's something that I have learned from Thich Nhat Hanh, Zen master. You need to know your needs, because if how can you be in a relationship or even try to help transform your partner's suffering when your cup is empty? And that's something that I think a lot of us are walking in life thinking that, especially if we are givers. If you're a giver and you're just giving and giving and giving and your cup is empty, you're going to get burned out, whether in a relationship, whether in a career, in life. You need to stop right there and be mindful about yourself. Okay, my cup is empty. What can I do to fill it out? I need to perhaps to spend more me time and do things that makes me happy. Once you have your cup full, then you can go out and work with others, be in that relationship, have a healthy relationship with your family and friends.
Definitely. Yeah. And then, as you were saying, like, if you're already focused on your own needs, but you're looking at your partner's burdens as theirs, the 4th element, as you're saying, is really coming together and taking on your burdens together, because that's what real teamwork and collaboration is.
Yes.
So
Yes.
love what
Practically,
you're saying about that.
yeah, inclusiveness is just like, I'm not gonna be with you when when you're going through hell. I'm only gonna be with you, or when you are like full of rainbows, and but it
Right.
doesn't work like that. It does not work like that.
Yeah. I mean, and how powerful is it to develop this secure partnership where you know that you have each other's back?
Oh, it's so beautiful and nourishing. It
I
really
think
is
that's what we're
just,
all
yeah.
really looking for.
Yes, and like I said, it starts with you, and you also teach people how to treat you through
Yep.
your own behavior.
Yep. So true. So true. And so I love
Yeah.
what you're saying. And I think that your quiz, Are You Ready to Love, is perfect for anybody who is listening to this and is thinking, wow, I really want to learn these 4 elements of mindfulness. And I'm just not sure if I'm really, like, what skills I'm good at and what skills I'm not good at and where I can learn and grow. And so I know that that's what your quiz can offer them.
Yep, exactly. You hit it right on the nail.
So
And
I'm
it's not
happy
about
to.
like pointing fingers, really just about to sit down with yourself and be just super honest with yourself, brutally honest with yourself. And then from there you can work on things that you still need to work on yourself if you want to step into a committed relationship. And if you are already in a committed relationship and you find yourself that you have a very imbalanced life with yourself, that's like a big exclamation mark, like a big red light for you, like to stop doing what you're doing and really start working on yourself, and communicate that to your partner. Be like, I'm gonna start investing time on myself. I do want to offer all these things to you in a relationship, but I have learned that I need to first give that to myself in order to share this with you.
So powerful. And I find that with my clients, when they do take that on, really meeting their own needs and transforming to give themselves compassion, that they do have so much more to give to someone else.
Exactly. But even if you're not compatible and you realize that you're not in a stage in your lives in which both of you could be together, there is such a thing as a mindful breakup. And
Exactly.
and I am so proud of myself that I can now do what is called mindful breakups. It's a whole different peaceful experience that you leave somebody still with love, right?
Definitely. Yeah, we could do a whole nother interview on that too. I mean, because
Oh yes, definitely.
and I'd love for people to leave in the comments if that's something that you would like to
I
have
would love to.
another.
And yes, and if you have any questions, I love to answer questions. So go ahead, shoot all your questions. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. If you're watching this on YouTube, then ask us questions in the comments. We'd love to answer your questions and let us know what you would like us to and to do future interviews about. If you're listening to this as a podcast on iTunes, then you can go to the show notes page, which is at www.coachvaleriegreen.com/podcast/freedom. I'll have her link there, and you could also type a comment there. So we are so happy to answer all your questions and comments, and we're really here to serve you. And this has just been such a joy and such a pleasure. And before we go, let's just do a fun question. Like, I know we talked a lot about how to bring more joy into your life. And so what do you do, Freedom, when you want to experience more joy and you're just kind of in a funk and you're like, I want to make myself feel good?
Sure. And this is what I teach everybody, even my friends. You have to raise your bar. So by raising the bar, I mean, I do have my own expectations, goals and intentions in different aspects of my life. So every year I raise my bar on each of them. And so let's say for social growth, like I'm not feeling like I feel like kind of like things are kind of repetitive, the same routine, and I need to enjoy into my life. I really get to do things like one time, for example, I was in Lima, Peru, and I was at this beautiful beach on a cliff, and they were offering paragliding. And I incidentally, I was wearing my freedom shirt on the back, and I'm like, okay, I think this is really raising the bar.
It's a sign.
Yeah, it's a sign, and the altitude was pretty high. You could see people like the size of an ant, and
Wow.
I just went for paragliding. Just doing something out of your comfort zone, totally out of your comfort zone, doing something different. I know traveling is very enriching to my life, but even just doing local things, just getting together with your friends and do something different, go somewhere else, experience something different. Doesn't have to do the same. You don't have to do the same thing always.
Right. Every time you're upset, just go to Lima, Peru and go paragliding.
Or that too. Yeah, sure.
Wouldn't that be nice?
But if it is one thing that I do, that is the same thing that helps me ground it, and I'm most likely gonna do it for the rest of my life. Like that's my SOS emergency tool. It's meditation.
I completely agree. I think meditation is such an important practice, and there's so many kinds of meditation. So definitely post in the comments what kind of meditation works for you, and I'll post some resources as well. I will send you Freedom's free quiz, and it's been such a joy to be with you today, and thank you so much.